Which NFL teams are the most loaded, the most stacked, the best rosters in the NFL entering 2024? What's going on, BLV? It's Mitch here, back with another NFL reaction video, and this time it's none other than the controversial Nick Wright. Nick Wright is going to provide us with his top 5 rosters in the NFL, and I'm simply going to react. Is Nick Wright right, or is Nick Wright Nick wrong in this video? Gronk spike the like button for more NFL reactions just like this. Of course, subscribe. I cover all 32 NFL teams, and I have fun daily on the Bottom Line View. Also, let me know in the comments, guys, what you think of Nick Wright's top 5 rosters in the NFL, which, by the way, I'll be ranking all 32 rosters in the NFL before the kickoff of the 2024 NFL regular season. Let's get to it, guys. Let's react. Nick makes a list. Let's see if Nick Wright truly lives up to his name. Will he be right about the top 5 rosters in the league?
These are the 5 best rosters in the league.
This is what separates you from everybody else.
Exactly.
The quarterbacks are on the roster.
They're literally on the roster, so when we talk top 5 rosters, you should include them. Now, it doesn't mean
you should include quarterbacks in your roster evaluation, but in my opinion, you try to strip away the value of the quarterback and try to put it in line with the rest of the roster. So how you evaluate an elite edge player, or an elite running back, or an elite receiver, an elite tight end, they're all the same in my roster evaluation. I don't try to add some sort of positional value to the roster evaluation. That's where we get to team evaluation. That's the difference, right? Great coaching, great quarterback play, cohesion, chemistry. Those things take a roster in raw form and form it into a team. Now, let's see how Nick Wright justifies his rankings here, because I feel like he's almost going to be ranking the top 5 teams and not the top 5 rosters.
they're the entirety of it, but they obviously impact it. So number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals. You're not.
This to me is a top 5 team, but I'm not necessarily sure I would say a top 5 roster.
Going to see them on anybody else's. It's weird. The same people will be like, hey, 5 teams who could win the Super Bowl, they'll be on there, but top 5 rosters can't do that. Well, I don't know who plays in the Super Bowl. Guys on your roster. Joe Burrow.
Okay, I like that delivery, but yeah, but there's a difference. There's top 5 teams and there's top 5 rosters. The reason the Bengals are so good is because of Joe Burrow. As we saw last year, they were a good team. They're a fine team, above average. But really, without Joe Burrow, they're not an elite team. They're nowhere close, right? Last year, their defense didn't perform very well. That was a little underwhelming compared to expectation. But the coaching also is a big part of their defensive success. The way that these players have grown together on the defensive line from front to back of their defense. They have great chemistry in their front 7. These receivers with Joe Burrow have built great chemistry. Zach Taylor understanding what Burrow wants to do on offense. There is a full cohesion level of this team. This chemistry of the Bengals is what makes you believe in them. The culture of the Bengals, the understanding that they believe they can win any game. Remember in 2021, people denied the Bengals. People did not think they could actually get to the Super Bowl or continue that winning streak to the Super Bowl because people did not believe their team was actually strong enough. But it's a belief, right? People did not believe in the roster. Then you saw the team go out there and come together and perform. So there's a difference between a roster and how a team actually plays. So to me, I would not have the Bengals in my top 5 rosters. That being said, I think they're around the top 10. So this isn't an egregious ranking, right? They do have an elite receiving core. They do have an improved offensive line, a first-round pick as a 3rd member of that tackle trio, right? Orlando Brown, Trent Brown, and like I said, Amarius Mims. I like Ted Karras. I like Alex Kappa. You've got T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, obviously. Running back's a little bit weak or unknown based on their current situation. The D-line is solid. Trey Hendrickson is a star. Sam Hubbard is good. Sheldon Rankins is good. B.J. Hill is good. Logan Wilson is really, really solid. Jermaine Pratt is consistent. The safeties are improved. The corners, Cam Taylor-Britt, underrated. Mike Hilton, elite at his position. So you look across the roster, yes, they don't have many holes. They don't have many super strengths outside of their passing game. But that's what makes them a good team. They don't have many holes that you can pick on defense or offense, but they also have maybe one strength. Their roster really doesn't determine them as a great team. It's how they complement each other. That's what makes them a great team. If this was an average quarterback leading the way, I don't think they would be a top 5 power ranked team.
Don't love the hair, do love his attitude. So his quotes this offseason I thought have been excellent. And the things he has said about reminding himself about how much the losing hurts, about how hard he has to work. And I think Joe Burrow has the exact right disposition to come back from a wildly frustrating and disappointing year. Not being healthy at the beginning, playing poorly, finally getting healthy, playing great, and then suffering a freak injury. You add to that, they didn't get rid of T. Higgins like I thought they would. They might pay for that down the road, but this year it helps them. Their defense last year was wildly problematic. They bring in Geno Stone, which I like. They had other players in the secondary. I
Von Bell.
expect a better year from their edges, Hubbard and Hendrickson.
Well, Hendrickson was great, but Hubbard, yes. Also Miles Murphy year 2.
Obviously, I think Chase is going to get it done, and I think
this will be Jamar Chase's best season of his career, period.
the loss of Joe Mixon is that significant.
I agree with that. I think Moss and Brown can replace the production of Joe Mixon. I love Joe Mixon, huge Joe Mixon fan, but I do think that it's very replaceable.
And they spent a first-round pick on a tackle. He's banged up, but I like that pick. They're number 5. Number 4. Hey there.
No.
The Chicago Bears at number 4, best roster in the league. Oh my goodness. Nick Wrong. Not Nick Wright. Now, that being said, I think that the Bears are maybe perhaps an underrated roster, but the 4th best roster in the league. Now, I don't know who his top 3 rosters are in the NFL, but are they the 3rd best roster in their own division? Are they the 2nd best roster in their own division? I don't know, man. Like, I like their receivers a lot. So far we have a trend. Bengals and Bears have great receivers. Bears have one great edge rusher. The rest of the D-line, I think, is fairly replaceable. Not terrible, but not great. Linebackers are good. TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, safeties, Brisker, Byard. Expecting a better level of play from Byard, and Brisker is underrated. I think the secondary overall is pretty unheralded. I love Jalen Johnson. He's a stud. And I think that Gordon, Stevenson are young players on the rise, but they have not confirmed they're very good yet, right? So that's a different conversation. Then you look at offense. The O-line still hasn't yet confirmed that they're very good. There's guys on there that I like, right? From left to right, they actually look on paper like a top half of the league offensive line, but they haven't yet confirmed that status. Cole Kmet's a good tight end. The running backs are fine. I think Khalil Herbert's a little underrated. DeAndre Swift maybe a little overrated. But I think that the roster's good. Like, I could argue it's top 15, but 4th? Let me know if you guys agree with that in the comments.
No.
Oh, yeah. The Chicago Bears.
Oh, boy.
So this is, on top of this, though, you're really putting a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams, because if you think the roster is 4th best in the league and Caleb does not take this team to the playoffs, you're basically suggesting Caleb is not that good.
I would just like to know what the biggest weakness on the roster is. The answer to that is probably left side of the offensive line, but they have a stud right tackle. They have arguably...
Well, is Darnell Wright a stud right tackle? Is that a confirmed thing that we all believe? I don't necessarily think so. I liked him a lot in the draft. I do think that another weakness is the 2nd edge rusher on this team. I do feel like the corners need to play better around Jalen Johnson. Stevenson has his moments for sure. And I would say that the overall running game projection due to the O-line and the running backs is a relative weakness. I think that's probably below average in the NFL, right? So when you're talking about weaknesses, you're also talking about the comparison of the rest of the league. I think their pass rush is a little bit weaker than most teams, and I think that their running game is a little bit weaker than most teams. But that's just my opinion.
The best 1 through 3 wide receiver group in the league. Not the best 1 or the best 2, but as far as if Keenan...
The Texans are better. The Niners are better. The Bears are in the top 5. They're in my top 5.
Allen's your number 3, DJ Moore, and I think Rome Odunze is a legitimate number 2 the moment he walks into the league. That's great. I love DeAndre Swift. I know a lot of Eagles fans evidently think they're getting a huge upgrade with Saquon. I don't know that I agree with that.
Okay, he loves DeAndre Swift. I don't really, so.
This defense was elite the moment they got Montez Sweat last year. They
played a lot of bad teams, but okay.
They added help in the secondary. Jalen Johnson's one of the 5.
Did they add help in the secondary? They swapped Kevin Byard for Eddie Jackson. Maybe a little bit.
Best corners in football. Number 4.
They also added another safety, right? Is it Simone Biles' husband?
Roster in the league, the Chicago Bears. Number 3.
Totally disagree with that one. Number 3, the Niners. I just think they're too low, but they are definitely in the top 5. I could see some people not having them at 1. That's fine. But to me, I just don't know where the argument would lie for them not being in the top 2 in the NFL right now in terms of roster talent. Like, yes, the O-line, I guess, is a little suspect, but if anything, they're better now. Like, Colton McKivitz, another year starting, should be better. Dominic Pooney added. That helps. Trent Williams is a stud, right? They've got the same players there. The secondary, I think, is deeper and better. You look at some of the younger players that are on the rise this offseason, this preseason, like Mustafa. You look at D. Winters, guys that are showing up big time in camp and things like that. The receiving core is the best in football, from Ayuk to Debo to Kittle to Pearsall to Juwan Jennings, right? McCaffrey's the best running back. Nick Bosa is a top 5 edge at the most loaded position in football. Javon Hargrave's a top 10 to 12 D tackle, maybe top 8, depending on who you ask, right? Like, they've got elite players. Fred Warner's arguably the best linebacker in the league. Hufanga, an all-pro from 2 years ago, comes back to the team. Charvarius Ward's a top 6 corner in the league. So, like, they've got elite players at pretty much every position group. I don't understand how this team would not be evaluated as a top 2 roster, position for position, player for player, team for team. That being said, if you also don't believe Brock Purdy is that good, which Nick Wright does not, it also doesn't make a lot of sense to not have the Niners at least second, because the Niners, based on roster talent, that's the reason they would get to the Super Bowl, right? Just trying to understand.
See, the quarterback being on the roster cuts both ways, boys. Okay. The San Francisco 49ers.
See, though, like, let's just say Brock Purdy is in Nick Wright's opinion, in my opinion, he's like 10th best quarterback in the league, okay? But in Nick Wright's opinion, let's say he's 16th. So if he's the 16th best quarterback, and let's say Tremaine Edmonds is the 16th best linebacker in the NFL, to me, on a roster evaluation, they're the same. They're the same. So I don't know how much he's putting quarterback into this. I guess he already has Caleb above Purdy, which is also a little bit of a wild take as well, considering how much winning Purdy has done already and how successful he's been already. But that's just me. Caleb looks really good, but don't get me wrong. Like, Brock Purdy's good.
Everybody has them as the number 1 roster in football, not me.
As they should.
Now, they do have, assuming everyone, I'm assuming Ayuk is gone, but I'm assuming Trent Williams is there. I understand
Ayuk is staying.
Trent Williams is not currently coming to camp, but nobody thinks he's going anywhere. You have the best left tackle in football, one of the best edges in football, one of the 3 or 4 best tight ends in football, to go along with, when you get Hufanga back, one of the best safeties in football and the best running back in football.
He left a couple players out. He left out Fred Warner. He left out Javon Hargrave. He left out Charvarius Ward. He left out Debo Samuel. But he's close. He's almost there.
I think they will miss Ayuk, assuming he's gone, but maybe at this point, maybe they're able to keep him. You're fine at quarterback. I don't think you're great at quarterback. I don't think you're dead at quarterback. And I also think some of the additions they have tried to make recently to upgrade the offensive line, which, to be fair, the right side of it wasn't elite last year, is smart. And you have
That's fair.
the best inside linebacker of his little mini generation in front.
Okay, so you finally brought that up. That's fine.
Corner, you'll get Dre Greenlaw.
I just think the Niners have way less holes. Honestly, probably, I don't even know who 2-1 are, but like, they probably have less holes than 2-1. I could probably go position for position, roster for roster, and say like, yeah, that roster has less holes, the Niners, than that other team. On top of that too, I felt like the defensive coaching last year was actually like hurting the team, like actively hurting the roster. So that doesn't do them any favors. There's other defensive coaches that actively help aid the defense or the offense, right? Now, Kyle does that for the offense, that's for sure. But the defense in San Francisco, you know, it's not like they had Spags coaching them. It's not like they had Mike McDonald coaching them, all right?
Well, back at some point, I have them at number 3. At number 2, the Detroit Lions.
See, this, I think Detroit's top 3, honestly, in my opinion. I think Detroit has a top 3 roster in the league. So I'm not really going to get too mad at this. But I love the O-line. I do think the concern on the O-line is the age of the interior of the O-line. That's a little scary to me. But outside of that, nobody really brings that up. But outside of that, that is a great O-line. Running backs are awesome as long as Jameer is healthy. Sam Laporta is a stud. Amon-Ra is phenomenal. Now, they do need someone to step up at receiver. Jameson Williams is probably the guy that needs to step up. Defensively, they've improved their D-line. They've improved their corner position. So there's a lot to like in Detroit. They've got a number of phenomenal young players like Branch coming up on the rise, right? Laporta on the rise. But I think they really improved their biggest weaknesses and they improved some of their depth at certain places. I wish they had another receiver that I was really excited about, but that's probably the only area, that and edge rusher number 2, where I'm like, it's a little underwhelming. And to me, that is more of a concern than San Francisco having, you know, a below average right side of their offensive line. Like, having 2 positions of concern and uncertainty at the positions of improvement is more concerning than what the Niners feature, right? I just think the Niners have more elite players and they also have very special and unique players. Not saying the Lions don't have a great roster. I'm just saying that's probably what puts the Niners ahead of the Lions for a lot of people. And there's nobody like Debo in the NFL. There's nobody like Kittle in the NFL. There's nobody like McCaffrey in the NFL. There are some Nick Bozas, I guess, but there's very few, right? There's really no one like Fred Warner in the NFL. So there's a number of players on the Niners that are extremely unique to them.
They have, in my opinion, clearly, almost unanimously at this point, the best offensive line in football.
I agree with that. That is a big time point. That helps a lot.
That makes their quarterback a top 10 quarterback. Jared Goff, in and of himself, is
top 10 production could be fair. I don't think I would put... See, that's the thing. Like, how are you evaluating quarterback? Because, like, the way I would evaluate a quarterback is not by saying, well, he has a good O-line, so he's good. That's not how I evaluate a quarterback, so...
Is not a top 10 quarterback. In this situation, where he will be protected, where he plays almost all his games indoors, he is a top 10 quarterback. You add to that Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery out of the backfield. I know Gibbs got dinged up, I think, today or yesterday. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a great receiver. Jameson Williams has great talent. He finally showed some flashes of that in the playoffs last year. You upgraded the defense, adding Marcus Davenport and Terrion Arnold in the first round of the draft. I don't see a real weakness on this roster right now. They are the number 2.
Yeah, I think it's depth of weaponry, and I think it's defensive pass rush, and debatably corner, but it depends on if those upgrades helped. Like, I think Carlton Davis at the very least will be an improvement to CB1, but Terrion Arnold being a rookie is a little scary. right? But he's a first round pick, so you would hope he could at least be CB2, right? So again, I think this is a great team. They could win the Super Bowl. So I'm not really debating it too much. I'm just arguing the Niners are probably still a little bit better.
Roster, and then of course the number one roster in football is the roster that Patrick Mahomes is on. Why are they the number one roster in football? Well, we can just reveal it. There it is. It's not only because of Patrick Mahomes, but he sure does help. But you.
Okay, here's the thing. This is not a ranking of teams. This is not a ranking of quarterbacks. Basically, his lead argument is that the best roster in the league is the one that Mahomes is on. But my thing is like, they don't win. So if you actually think Patrick Mahomes is the greatest player to ever play the sport, if you think Patrick Mahomes, which is what Nick Wright believes, I think, if you think that Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the NFL and not Tyreek Hill, according to the top 100, then you would believe that the Chiefs are led and carried by Patrick Mahomes to some degree. You obviously need a good team to win a Super Bowl. But a lot of the time when the Patriots were winning Super Bowls, a lot of people did not say that the Patriots had the best roster in the league, right? A lot of people wouldn't have said that. Although it might have been true at certain moments, like maybe the really, really special teams like 2007 and 2004. There were a couple moments where they were perhaps the best roster in the league. But with Mahomes, to me, like, I don't evaluate the Chiefs as the best roster because to me, they're not. The reason they win is because they have the best coaching staff in the league and they have the best quarterback in the league. And then they have a couple of great players like Chris Jones and Travis Kelce. And then those players are supported by a lot of secondary pieces that fit their roles very well, like Justin Reed as a safety, or Nick Bolton at linebacker, or George Karlaftis as a hardworking edge rusher, or even to a certain, a greater degree in terms of importance, Joe Tooney and Creed Humphrey. These players are very, very good, right? And Smith. But to me, like, they also have more holes. They certainly have more holes in the secondary now with L'Jarius Sneed being gone. But their D-line is not looked at as an elite D-line. Their receiving core, even with the improvements, are still not looked at as elite. Their tackle position is not elite. Pacheco is not elite. He's good. He's not elite, right? So you think about their roster and you're like, they're safeties. They're good players. I think their linebackers are very underrated. They have good things about their roster that would make them top 5, top 10 maybe, right? But the number one, that is basically just solely focusing on the quarterback, which is incorrect. This is not how we evaluate rosters in the NFL. That is not the point. That's how you evaluate teams. It should be called the top 5 NFL teams. That's what it should be called.
You also have arguably the league's best defensive player, inarguably the league's most potent playoff weapon in Travis Kelce. He's been a first-round pick.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. I don't think Chris Jones is the best defensive player in the league. And I also think Kelce's getting older. But it's hard to argue both those statements.
On the fastest player in league history, you had the
we don't know if he's any good yet. I love Worthy, but we don't know he's any good.
Second youngest defense in football last year. That was also statistically the second best defense in football. You lost one piece of it in L'Jarius Sneed.
A lot of it, I think, is because of how good the coach is, though. Like, I think that, like, again, I thought those Patriots defenses some years, 2016, for example, number 1 defense in points allowed. I didn't think they were the most talented defense, but they might have been the best because they're coaching with the talent that they had. It made it such a schematically sound and effective defense. But they were rolling out players that people would never vote to a Pro Bowl, as starting players. So to me, like, there's difference in these calculations. So let's just finish this video and I'll end it.
But you brought everyone else back. And I think you upgraded at left tackle with this rookie, Kingsley Suamata. After last year, it was Donovan Smith, and he was dealing with some injuries. They are the best roster in football. Greg Jennings, there it is, 5-1, the 5 best rosters in the NFL. These.
Okay, yeah. Again, I disagree with that list. I will be coming out with my top 5 rosters in the NFL. I will be coming out with my top 32 rosters in the NFL, ranking every roster from the worst to the best pretty soon by the season kickoff. I will be coming out with my rankings, D-lines, linebackers, all that stuff coming soon. Rosters will be the last rankings video I do likely. So yeah, watch out for that, but definitely disagree with this video. I think Nick Wright was Nick wrong here, but you guys let me know in the comments what you thought. It's Mitch. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next BLV video. Peace.